Sometimes life shatters us in ways we never imagined through betrayal, loss, or heartbreak. In those moments, it feels like we are nothing but scattered pieces, too broken to ever be whole again. But what if those cracks aren't proof of weakness? What if they are the very places where our strength begins to shine through? This is the story of how pain can carve a deeper space for courage, how wounds can awaken hidden power, and how even in the darkest night, the light of wholeness never truly disappears. I was only a teenager when I first learned how fragile trust could be. My boyfriend, the one I believed cared for me, crossed a boundary I never gave him permission to cross. It wasn't just the loss of innocence, it was the silence that followed. Instead of walking away, I convinced myself that I had to stay. I told myself it was love, that the hurt was normal, that I had to hold on to the pieces of myself he had taken. For 3 long years, I stayed by his side, shrinking smaller and smaller, until I barely recognized the girl in the mirror. My body carried the weight of secrets I never spoke, falling to 90 pounds, as though vanishing would erase the shame. And yet, I said nothing. The fear of being broken kept me chained to the very thing that was breaking me. It wasn't until one night, sitting on the couch with my younger brother Jim and our best friend Joe, that truth slipped out of my lips. I told them everything. Their reaction was immediate, urgent. They begged me, please break up with him. Please, dear God, leave. For the first time, I realized I could, that maybe escape wasn't impossible. That night, we made a plan. Tomorrow, I would walk away. Tonight, we would practice what it would feel like. But a few hours later, Jim found me crumpled on my bedroom floor, sobbing so violently my body shook. He picked me up, held me like I was a child, and I kept repeating the same words. How did I let this happen? I must be a bad person. I feel broken. I am so broken. Jim was only 17, but his words carried more wisdom than most adults ever managed to find. He sat me up, looked straight into my eyes, and said firmly, "Stop that. I don't ever want to hear you say something like that again. You are the best person I know. You've saved my life in 100 little ways you don't even count. Anything bad you say about yourself feels like you're saying it about me. So don't." Then he wiped my tears and promised me something simple, something healing. "I'm going to make you the best sandwich you've ever had." That night, I learned a truth that changed me forever. Words can save lives. My brother didn't see me as broken pieces. He saw all of me whole, even when I couldn't. Years later, I would realize the depth of what Jim had given me in that moment. He knew something that many never understand. No matter what happens to us, there are no pieces of us that are disposable. We can be bruised, bent, or scarred, but never worthless. My mother lived this truth every day. She was the kind of woman who became mom to every child in the neighborhood. Her front door was always open, her snack cabinet always full. And every time she passed a kid in her van, she'd roll down the window, wave, and say, "Hey, I see you. I know you." Her love was like the sun, warm, steady, impossible to ignore. Kids were drawn to her because she made them feel visible in a world that so often overlooked them. But even the sun can be hidden by clouds. That light of wholeness was with me on the darkest day of my life, when the police told me that my mom and Jim had been killed in a burglary gone wrong. The man confessed he killed her because she recognized him, because she had made it a point to wave at him every single day. A troubled kid, a broken soul, and still my mom tried to let him know he mattered. She screamed his name because she knew him, she saw him. And for that, he silenced her. The world around me collapsed. The media swarmed, headlines spread, and strangers whispered that my life was ruined. Professors even told me, "You will never be okay again." But deep inside, I remembered the voices of my true teachers, my mom and Jim, who had already shown me that even in devastation, we are not broken. Grief doesn't arrive quietly. It rips through your chest, rearranges your heartbeat, and convinces you that nothing will ever be the same again. After losing my mom and Jim, I walked through the world like a shadow. Everywhere I went, people looked at me with pity. their eyes saying what their mouths never did: "She's broken." And for a while, I believed them. It would have been so easy to accept that my life was now only fragments, that I was destined to live in ruins. But then I remembered my brother's words, the ones he had spoken while holding me together on that bedroom floor. "You are not broken." His voice became an anchor in my storm. And little by little, I realized that I didn't have to let grief define me. I couldn't control what had happened, but I could decide what it meant. One of the most unexpected lifelines came from a teacher named Ms. Graham. On the first day of class, she didn't bother with introductions. Instead, she gave us a writing assignment. Who are you? What has shaped you? Who do you want to be? Then, without hesitation, she shared her own story. She told us about losing her two sisters, her father and her husband. The room grew heavy with the weight of her words, as if her grief had pulled us all into its orbit. But then she looked up, calm and steady, and said, "I am the happiest person I know. These things have shaped me, they have changed me, but they are not who I am, because they are not who I've decided to be." Her words pierced through me like sunlight breaking clouds. That day, I tethered my heart to her wisdom. If she could carry unimaginable loss and still declare happiness, then maybe so could I. For years after, I carried her voice with me. Through my 20s, whenever pain tried to convince me I was shattered, her lesson returned: "This may shape you, but it cannot break you." Slowly, I began to understand. Healing was not about erasing the scars, but about learning that scars themselves were proof of survival. I couldn't rewrite what happened, but I could choose what story it told about me. And that story didn't have to be one of destruction. It could be one of resilience. The truth is, healing takes everything you have, every ounce of compassion, every drop of courage, every skill you never knew you had. And yet, it gives you something greater in return. It shows you who you truly are. When you survive what should have broken you, you begin to see yourself in a new light. You realize you are stronger, deeper, more capable than you ever imagined. Pain doesn't just wound, it reveals. And once you see your own strength, it becomes impossible not to live fully, not to show up with your whole heart in everything you do. This is the paradox of suffering. It threatens to take everything from you, but in the end, it can give you back yourself. I began to notice something else too. When we learn to show up fully, we stop abandoning ourselves. We stop pretending, stop hiding, stop shrinking. And that changes the way we love others. People who have walked through the fire and found their strength don't just pass by those who are hurting. They kneel down beside them and say, "I know this hurts, I know you're bleeding, but you are not broken, and you cannot stay here. We're going to do this together." That is the power of wholeness. It spreads. It turns suffering into connection. It turns wounds into bridges. And it teaches us that no matter how bruised or bent we become, the truth remains: we are unbreakable. For a long time, I thought being strong meant keeping everything inside, pretending I was fine, and never letting anyone see me struggle. But true strength isn't silence, it's honesty. It's standing in the middle of the storm and admitting, "This hurts, but I'm still here." The moment we tell the truth, healing begins. When I finally allowed myself to speak about what had happened to me, about the boyfriend, the shame, the weight of loss, I discovered something surprising. People leaned in. They didn't run from my pain. They recognized it. My story became a mirror where they could see their own battles reflected. That's when I realized our broken places are not a curse. They are invitations for connection. Connection is what saved me. Each time I shared my story, someone else would whisper, "Me too." And with those two words, loneliness loosened its grip. We all walk around carrying invisible wounds, terrified someone might notice them. But what if those wounds are not signs of weakness? What if they are proof of our humanity? When my mother waved to that troubled boy every day, she wasn't blind to his pain, she acknowledged it. She wanted him to feel seen. That is the gift we can give to each other, to look at someone's scars and say, "I see you, you matter, you are loved." Still, Healing is not a straight line. There were days I wanted to stay in bed forever, days when grief suffocated me so tightly I could barely breathe. But each time I felt myself sinking, I remembered Jim's voice, steady and unwavering. "You are not broken." It became my mantra. I clung to it when memories overwhelmed me, when doubt tried to convince me that I wasn't enough, when the world seemed too heavy. His words reminded me that no matter what happened, my worth was not up for debate. I could be bent, but I could not be broken. Over time, I began to rebuild, not into who I had been before, but into someone stronger. I learned that wholeness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It means gathering up the shattered pieces and creating something new, something even more beautiful. Like stained glass, our lives become mosaics of light and shadow, joy and pain, brokenness and strength. And the cracks, they don't ruin the picture. They make it radiant. Every bruise, every scar, every tear we've shed becomes part of the masterpiece. That's what it means to heal, not to erase the past, but to transform it. And in that transformation, something incredible happens. We begin to see others differently too. Once you know what it feels like to sit in the ashes, you can never look at another person's suffering with indifference. You recognize the quiet battles behind their eyes. You don't dismiss their pain. You honor it. You reach out not with pity, but with solidarity. Healing isn't just about becoming whole yourself. It's about helping others remember their wholeness too. Because in the end, we rise together. My mother lived this truth, my brother embodied it, and now it has become the way I choose to live. Life after loss taught me something I never expected. Pain can be a teacher, but only if we let it. For years, I resisted it, fought against it, tried to bury it deep inside. But the more I resisted, the heavier it became. Healing began the moment I stopped running and turned toward my pain, asking, "What are you here to teach me?" The answers weren't immediate, but slowly they came. Pain taught me that joy is not the absence of suffering. It's the decision to notice light, even while standing in the dark. Pain taught me that strength is not about never falling. It's about finding the courage to rise again. And most of all, pain taught me that we are never truly broken, only reshaped. There is a kind of beauty that only comes through struggle. When I look back at the darkest nights of my life, I realized they had carved out deeper spaces within me. Spaces for empathy, compassion, and understanding. Before, I might have overlooked someone else's silent suffering, but after loss, I couldn't ignore it. My heart recognized the signs, the quiet voice, the heavy shoulders, the smile that didn't quite reach the eyes. And because I had been there, I could say with conviction, "I know how much this hurts, but you are not alone." That is the gift of surviving what should have broken you. You carry the medicine others need. But here's the truth: many people don't want to admit healing is not quick, and it is not easy. It's messy, exhausting, and at times it feels impossible. There were nights when I begged for relief, mornings when getting out of bed felt like climbing a mountain. But every time I pushed forward, even just an inch, I discovered new strength within me. I learned that healing doesn't happen all at once. It happens in moments, when you choose to speak instead of staying silent, when you decide to reach out instead of hiding, when you allow yourself to hope again. Healing is not one big miracle. It is thousands of small choices that lead us back to ourselves. Those small choices began to rebuild me into someone new. I stopped measuring my life by what I had lost and started measuring it by what I was becoming. I was no longer the girl who stayed silent in shame. I was no longer the woman who believed she was broken beyond repair. I was someone who had faced pain head on and lived to tell the story. And that story was not just for me. It was for everyone still lost in their own storms. I realized that sharing my journey wasn't just healing for me. It was hope for others. My scars became a map, guiding others toward their own light. And with each person I met, each soul I touched with my story, I saw the same truth reflected back. We are all carrying something. We all know what it feels like to hurt. But when we come together, when we share our truths, When we remind each other that brokenness is an illusion, we begin to heal as a community. This is what my mother taught me when she waved at every child. What my brother showed me when he refused to let me call myself broken. What my teacher embodied when she declared herself the happiest person she knew. Their lessons lived on in me, and now they live on in every person I meet. As the years passed, I began to notice that the people who inspired me most weren't the ones who lived perfect lives. They were the ones who had suffered deeply and still chose to love, still chose to rise, still chose to shine. They carried a quiet strength, the kind that doesn't boast, but simply exists, steady and unshakable. That is the strength I wanted to embody. Not the kind that denies pain, but the kind that transforms it. Because real power doesn't come from avoiding hardship. It comes from allowing hardship to refine us into something stronger, something more compassionate, something unbreakable. And so I started to live differently. I no longer chased perfection or tried to hide my scars. Instead, I embraced them as proof of my journey. Every bruise, every heartbreak, every loss had become part of the mosaic of my life. And when people asked me how I managed to keep going, my answer was simple. Because I know now that I cannot be broken. I can bend, I can bruise, I can change, but I will always be whole. This truth gave me freedom. It freed me from fear, from shame, from the belief that my worth could be taken away. I finally understood that my wholeness was not something I had to earn. It was mine all along. With this understanding came a new mission, to help others see their wholeness too. I wanted to be the voice that said what Jim once told me, "You are not broken." I wanted to be the wave my mother gave to every child, the open door, the reminder that someone sees you, knows you, and loves you. I wanted to be the teacher who shows that loss can shape you, but it does not have to define you. Because the truth is, we all have the power to remind each other of our unbreakable nature. And when we do, we create a world where people don't just survive pain, they rise from it. So now when I meet someone who feels lost, who feels shattered, I do what was once done for me. I sit with them in their pain. I don't tell them to get over it or be strong. I look them in the eye and say, "I know this hurts. I know you feel broken. But I promise you, you are not. You are still whole even now. And we will walk through this together." Because healing isn't about fixing people. It's about reminding them of what has always been true. They are worthy, they are enough, and they are unbreakable. This is the lesson my story has taught me. No matter what happens, no matter what we lose, no matter how many times life knocks us down, we are never truly broken. We are shaped, scarred, and strengthened, but never destroyed. The light within us may be hidden by clouds, but it never disappears. And once you discover that truth, once you live from it, you begin to shine in ways you never thought possible. You become the kind of person who not only survives pain, but transforms it into purpose. If this story touched your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it, and visit our channel for more inspiring stories that remind you of your strength, your wholeness, and your unbreakable spirit.